I was in an English class and somebody came in and spoke to the instructor and said, we need some volunteers to work backstage. And my hand went up like lightning, and I was excused from the English class. And I was sitting in the audience. I had never been exposed to theater up to now. This is freshman year in high school. And I was sitting in the theater and they were doing an opera. And they had a scrim effect where you had a scene on the scrim, and as they faded the lights out in front of them that was lighting the scrim and bring up lights behind it, a whole new scene came up of soldiers, Spanish soldiers boarding a ship with the head soldiers singing. I never got over that effect with the lights. I passed the Eddy test, which was radar and electronics, and that gave me kind of an education in lighting, electricity, electronics, radar, and I still really didn't think seriously about getting into lighting. And I started at NYU, uptown in the Bronx, School of Arts, in the fall. There I got involved in theater. There was a small theater, and I acted, I worked backstage. Before I graduated, I had become tech crew chief. And my last year at NYU, I wanted more theater, more lighting, more design. I was really interested in design then. And I spoke to Doc Smith at Columbia, and the Columbia Theater Associates. They had a great facility there, and they had a great reputation.
I met Marvin at Columbia. I was going to Columbia in graduate school, and Marvin was at NYU, and this was 1948. And he was working at the theater there. He had made some connection. I think it was with Chris Jaffe, a friend of his.
We had a group called the Drama Lab, and we had a bunch of one-act plays. And actually, one of them was by a well-known playwright, Ed Trzynski, who had written, or hadn't as yet, but was going to write Stalag 17 and was trying to get it produced on Broadway. And he was with our group, and he had written this one-act play called All Men Falling, okay? And I was in it, Norman Hall was in it.
And it was myself and another woman and some other fellow. And it was in the street in New York, and we were supposed to be in front of a butcher shop.
I don't know if Norman told you that, it was a kosher butcher shop. And Francine Wallace and Lloyd Steinkamp and I, on a Saturday, decided we'd go in and paint the set. So, it would be a brick thing, but this beautiful kosher butcher shop window with the Hebrew letters and dead chickens, hanging from there. Oh, it was great.
And Marv said, well, okay, here's the design. I'm going up to the Catskills for a weekend. So they kind of like looked at him and, yeah, okay. And he went.
And he leaves us there with, paint. We are miserable. It's midnight. We're all full of paint. And we got snap lines, to make these bricks. And now we've got to do the kosher butcher shop. And I turned to Francine and I said, do you really give a damn about this kosher butcher shop? And she says, I don't. And I said, Lloyd? He said, no. I said, the hell with it. We're just doing the bricks. Well, Marv comes back from Ellenville on Sunday evening, walks into the theater, and all he sees are bricks. Well, he hits the ceiling and said, well, where the hell were you? You know what I mean? You're having this grand time with this lady, and we're up there going snap, snap, snap.
I guess the next time Marv designed a set, he didn't go to the Catskills for a weekend. He stayed there to make sure that the people who were supposed to do it did it.
That was, I think, his first professional scenic design effort. After that, I think he stuck pretty much to stage lighting. No more kosher butchers.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
Somewhere in time in 1950, I was told that NBC Television was looking for lighting director. They needed some people.
We just met. It was a very, very busy time in television. Things were just starting. There were shows constantly going on.
I did Voice of Firestone. I was the lighting director for that, which was a major show, if I remember it, Mondays. Martin and Lewis shows, U.S. Royal Showcase. These were all variety shows, had big stars, usually weekend shows. I did Chesterfield Sound Off Time, and that kept me busy. And towards the middle to late 50s, I got the Steve Allen show.
And you're on the staff at NBC, and you're what they call a Group 2 engineer, and that's what the lighting directors were at the time. Now they're a little bit more than that. If they didn't have a job for you that particular week, they asked you to do other things. You know, you were assigned to do other things, and he didn't like that. You know, he didn't like pulling cables and working audio that he didn't know too much about. And he wanted to do what he wanted to do. He was the lighting director.
One day, Marvin was lighting Steve Allen, and Steve didn't like the way Marvin was doing it, and they had a big argument on stage of the Hudson Theater. They got so loud that everybody in the theater stopped to listen to this kid telling off Steve Allen. And finally Marvin got real mad and said, "Look, you may be the star of this show, but I'm the lighting director, and we should do it my way." And Steve Allen blinked and swallowed and looked at him. He said, "You're right, let's do it your way." And they let Steve Allen Marvin's way. So the next day, in the area where the AOL Time Warner building is now, there was a theater called the International Theater, and NBC had a studio there. And Marvin was there, and Steve Allen came to do a guest shot. So Steve Allen walks into the studio, and there's Marvin behind the camera pulling cable. And Steve Allen took one look at him and didn't believe it, blinked and took another look at him, and Marvin said, "If looks could kill, I'd have been dead."
Well, Sonny comes up with that story. I really don't remember too well. I had a very good relationship with Steve. In fact, my wife Barb and I, we used to sit with them, and when we go out of town, we'd sit with them at his table. And we were as friendly as anybody could be with Steve Allen, because off the air he was an introvert. On the air he was an extrovert. He did all kinds of crazy things with Goo Goo Dolls and throwing his hat around and doing all kinds of wild stuff. When he was funny, he was fantastic. And that was the end of all the other shows. I just did Steve Allen. And incidentally, I met my wife there, who worked for Steve Allen and Billy Harback. And we had great times together. She traveled the show, I traveled the show, we were there. We had a little apartment on 52nd Street, so I could fall out of bed, walk down to the Hudson Theater. After we were married, we moved to 58th Street. It was just as easy to get through town. And I ended my career there with Steve Allen. It was an exciting media. It was a new media. We were in it, we were doing it, and we were meeting people that we would never meet. Where else would you meet all these Hollywood stars, the opera stars, all these exciting, important people?